Hello, this is Glenn McCallum. I'm sharing a video of the practical for chapter 10 of the course. So I forgot my little text file, but anyway. All right, so of course chapter 10 of Cisco 3 is advanced OSPF, and so it looks at things like controlling who is which router is elected designated router and backup designated router. It also looks at other such things as lost the plot. Advertising default routes, and also playing around with hello intervals for your links. Now, if we look at a router, you can see that there's been some adjacency messages come up. So I've already configured the router with OSPF. So if we do show IP route, we have several networks learnt through OSPF, and so that all seems to be working fairly nicely now. I've chosen R1. It also has a loopback interface, all of the 11s, and that's going to be the default route that I'll share a little later. So if we also look at the IPv6 routing table, so I'll show IPv6. Again, we have several networks learnt through OSPF. There is also the loopback there somewhere. Yes. So that is going to be our default route that we advertise a little later too. So if you haven't already looked, you can see that we have 4 routers all connected via a switch, and so this is a multi-access environment, and so with that, of course, we'll have need to have a DR/BDR election. Now if we look at, again, we look at that, if we do show IP OSPF neighbors, you'll notice that the DR is router 4, so all the 4s there is router 4, and then BDR is all the 3s, and so because I haven't changed anything away from default apart from the basic configuration, the priorities are all set to 1, and so the router ID was used as the tiebreaker for the DR/BDR election, so that's why 4 and 3 are the DR and BDR. So I'll just do a quick show run, and so from here, as you can see, the gigabit 00 is the one that connects into the switch in the middle for all the routers, and so we have the IP addressing, we have the IPv6 addressing, and of course we have in the interface mode, of course, you have the IPv6 OSPF as well. And then the G01, that's for the LANs that hang off of the side, and so yeah, again, much the same. IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. I've gone to the trouble of doing local links this time just to be a good boy. And so when it comes to the router configurations, routing protocol configurations, I've got the router ID command in there. I've passive interfaced the gigabit 0/1, and I was a bit lazy with the network commands. Single area with all 10 networks, and so I just did the one command, and so I did an A-class wildcard mask, as it were. So of course, router ID for IPv6 is the 11s, and of course, you know, do network commands with IPv6, it's those interface commands we looked at earlier. So that's it for the router, and so, all right, let's look at playing around with DR/BDR elections. So on router 1, I've prepared some commands here earlier. So I'll actually make router 1 the DR by using the priority of 100. So I'll just paste my commands in here, and as you can see, I've done it in interface G00. I've set an OSPF priority of 100 for both IPv4 and IPv6, and copy. I'll save that configuration, and so now if we look at that show IP OSPF neighbor, it won't have changed because there's been no use for an election. But you can poke it and make it happen by doing clear IP OSPF process, and so I've actually thrown away all the configuration and then started again, and so now we can see that we seem to have a fair few neighbors up and running in full mode again. And so if we do show IP OSPF neighbors, you can only see 2 DR others and 1 BDR. And so because I've just set up this router, the one I'm sitting at, to be the DR, and so it doesn't actually show in no relationship to a DR. So if I go to the next router, router 2, sorry, and show IP OSPF neighbor, and so you can see, I'll just widen that a bit to make it a bit easier to read. The DR is now router 1. So I'll actually reconfigure router 2 to be BDR, and so priority 50 will do the trick. And so again, nothing will have changed. You didn't see any messages. So if we do clear IP OSPF neighbor, oops, not clear, OSPF process, sorry. And yes, I wish to do it. And so we seem to have some full adjacency there now. So if we do show IP OSPF neighbors, and now you can't see a BDR because the one I'm sitting at is BDR. And so, of course, the other option is you can actually set the priority to 0. And so, show IP OSPF neighbors. This is router 4, and so you can see router 1 is DR, router 2 is BDR, and router 3 is that DR other, or drother. So, of course, as I said, the other option is to set the priority to 0. And so, which is what I've just done. And we'll save the config. Let's do that show IP OSPF neighbor again. Can't see the priority, of course it's my own router. If we go back to say router 2, we should be able to see that now router 4 has a priority of 0, so that will actually never be DR or BDR. So probably one thing we haven't looked at is the IP OSPF neighbours for, or IPv6 OSPF neighbours. And I've done the commands the same again, except it seems to have gone the wrong way around, but anyway. Yeah, the one with priority 100 is actually lower than that one. I might restart the process on router 3. It's, clear IP OSPF process. Wait for him to come up again. So on router 3, we've got DR of 1, BDR of 2, and 4 as a priority of 0. If we do the same with IPv6, hopefully that's much the same. No, it hasn't. All right, I've obviously made a mistake. Have I missed out a command? Anyway. Now, of course, the other option is that we're going to talk about is advertising default routes. So I've just pasted the commands in. So I've put in a default route. This is in R1, out loopback 0. So that's a warning, don't need to worry about it. That's of course a default route for IPv6. And then I've done default information originate, much the same as what happens in RIP. So that's for IPv4. This one's for IPv6. And so let's have a look at the show IP route. Might widen the screen again. And as you can see, there is a gateway of last resort. And there is this static route here. If we do show IPv6 route, and again there's a static route, and that's it. But it's not particularly interesting on the router that's doing it. But if we look at R2, show IP route, you'll notice that it also has a gateway of last resort, and it has this external route from OSPF, which of course is what's been advertised using that default information originate. IPv6, and so again, just spacebar, and as you can see, there's the default route. So as you can see, like most IPv6 routing protocols, it's using the link local address as the next hop. And of course, because it's on router 1, it's going to FE81 because that's what I set it to. Now, the last thing we need to talk about is the hello and dead interval timers. Now, I think I mentioned last week that if the timers are different, the routers will actually lose adjacency. So I'll just paste it into router 1, and so as you can see, I've done IP OSPF, dead of hello interval of 20 and dead interval of 60 as opposed to 5 and 30, I think the defaults, and I've done it also for IPv6. Now what I might do is speed up the process, oops, and then let's see if we get any messages. And yes, we did. Because I've only changed it on R1, we now have no OSPF neighbours. So show IP OSPF neighbour, nothing, because I haven't done it on the other routers yet. So if I go through the other routers and add the configuration, it should actually look at that. We're finding adjacencies, and so it's probably losing other ones as well, but anyway, so I'll just add them to all the routers. And so now let's see what neighbors we have. Looks like we'll have all 4. Show IP OSPF neighbors. So away we roll. Let's do IPv6. Much the same. Yeah, and show IP route. We have our routes back. And so seems like a happy situation to be in. So that's something you got to remember if you play around with the router timings and OSPF. You've got to do it on all of them. At least every neighbor that you've done it on. Okay, so I think that was all I was planning on doing in this show. So I'll probably see you next week for testing. Have a good one.